Hello there and welcome to part 5 of the tutorial. So we made the bumps on the spider and we have painted the texture. Now we could go straight into the rigging, but what we're going to do just to see is we're going to go straight into putting this model into Unity, and I'll show you how to create this material so that it ends up looking exactly like it looks inside a Blender. So you'll see that we've got the bump map, and I've made sure that the image has been saved. It's saved in the same folder as the Blender file. I've also made sure that my base color image is also saved, so make sure that that's all saved and that the Blender file is saved. Now Blender 2.8 does a reasonable job of going straight into Unity, so you could put the Blender file in, but what ends up happening is you often get the camera and the light. So I've actually deleted both of those, and we could put the Blender file straight in, so you'll see that the light and the camera are missing from this. But I want to show you a slightly more controlled way of doing it. So we're going to show you the FBX Export. In the background, what Blender does, what Unity does anyway, is it runs Blender and uses Blender's FBX Export anyway to turn it into an FBX file. So we'll just shortcut that and I'll show you the options, as this is a slightly more advanced tutorial. So we have this this file. This has got my spider and it's got this materials. It doesn't matter which tab you're in, you could be in any one. I've just went back to the layout one so I can just see the object. I click on File and I click Export, and then I choose FBX, Firebox FBX. So the location that it's wanting to save this in is usually the same place as the Blender file, and you can't see it because you can't see any other FBX files because I haven't made it yet. And you'll see on the left hand side is the export options for this file. So it's not as difficult as it seems. There's only a few options that you really need to worry about. The main one here, if you only want to have the selected objects, if you've got multiple objects on your scene, you can choose just the selected object to export. I usually just leave all of these as they are, the default. You can add in whether you want to export the camps and lamp, the camera, lamp, armatures, and the meshes, or anything else. I'm just going to click on mesh. If you want to add others, you can hold shift and click, and you can get them as well. So I'm just going to click on the mesh, and I'm going to use this for the experimental apply transform. If anyone's ever tried to export models into Unity before from Blender, the biggest issue is that the Z-axis is up in Blender and the Z-axis is forward in Unity, and that can cause some issues. So leave this on, and then that way you have a good chance that this will sort that issue out and it'll just work. You can go through these other options. I'll just quickly go through them while we're here. So there's geometries where you apply the modifiers. By default that's on, so I do want to apply the modifiers. That'll apply the mirror and the subdivision surface. There's armatures if you happen to have any bones in there, which we will do later. And there's animations, whether you want to include the animations. And we don't have any animations, so we can untick that baked animations, and I'll just get rid of everything, so it won't export animations as well. Now I'm happy with the name, and I'm just going to click Export FBX. Now the folder that this went into was the same folder as the model was in. This is the FBX file right here. Yours might look a different icon, but this is the way mine is, and you'll notice that I've also put the two materials here. So I also have my Unity project up and running. So if I just quickly show you, the easiest way to get this in to your project is literally just a drag and drop. So I've got it open, I'll select it and then hold Control and select the materials as well, and then I'll just drag and drop them straight in here. I could create a folder for it, but I'm just going to show you this nice and quickly. So now that it's in, it's kind of set up already. It guessed that the main material was this diffuse one, but it's not set up in my bump map. So if I just drag it onto the left hand side here, you'll see that it's set up the color material, but you can't see any of the bumps in there. And what we have to do for that is to try and create this material correctly, because right now it kind of works as a height map, but it's not quite what we want. We need to extract this from the file. So if you click once on the actual FBX file, so that's in your assets, not the one on your scene, but the one in your assets, and then you'll see some of the import options. Now the cool thing about the experimental transform is that the spider is actually a scale of 1 and it's a rotation of 0, so it's absolutely perfect. I don't have to muck around with those inside of the export options. The if you do need to put colliders in, so if you need mesh colliders for any object, you can do it from here. We don't have a rig, and it knows it, so it's automatically set to none. We don't have any animations, so we can actually untick this import animations. We'll apply it in a second. And then under materials, what we need to do is we need to extract these materials. So if I just click extract materials, it asks me where I want to extract it. So it's actually the same folder as I put the spider, so it's in my assets folder. So I'll click select folder, and you'll see what it's done is it's taken this material right here, and it's taken it outside of this file and put it to the side so we can play around with it and change things. The mesh itself is just this one here. So this material, now that we've done that, you'll see that we can add any of the textures onto these different slots. So if you'd happen to add some metallic, or if you'd happen to bake out ambient occlusion, which is if you guys really want to, I can show you how to do that one as well. It ends up giving a nice result to the mesh. It gives it a little bit of a shaded areas where it should have shaded areas. It looks a bit more realistic. But what we're going to do is just treat this one as the normal map. Right now, if you click on that, it's imported it directly just as a normal default texture, and that's not what we want. We need this to be a normal map. So we click on default and change that to normal map, and then we just look at this create from grayscale. And because we've got this grayscale where white being higher and black being lowest and everything in between, if we click create from grayscale, we can change these values. I'm going to leave it at 0.25, and I am going to make that smooth rather than sharp, and I'm just going to click apply. What that does is it makes it into what looks a lot more like a normal map. You can see some funny odd colors in there. So what I might do is just turn this down a little bit. So we should see the sort of the purpley colors. We shouldn't see too many of the sort of horrible off pinks and black. So it looks okay. Now in order to apply it to this material, we just select the material and we just drag and drop it straight onto the normal map, and it shouldn't complain in any way. And what you'll now see is the normal map has been applied just like it was in Blender to the model that we have here. So the spider should pretty much look exactly like it did inside of Blender. One thing that you may need to do that I didn't include, that I've already done, was if it's really dark looking, what you can do is you can look at the rendering settings. So if you click on Window, change to Rendering, and choose lighting settings, you'll see that you can dock this tab if you want to. I quite like having it up here so I can see what's going on. But this is where we set up the lighting. So it's got the default skybox as the skybox material, and I've set my sun source as a directional light. I just literally dragged and dropped the directional light on here, and by default this is set to 1. The intensity multiplier for the environment lighting, this is how much it bounces. Yours may not have changed yet because you may not have baked it out, and in order to bake it out you just go right down to the bottom where it says generate lighting. Most of the time this is set not to auto generate, which is a good thing because you don't want it doing it all the time, but you do need to generate it once. So if you click generate lighting, it should take a second or two, and then the lighting should sort itself out and it won't be all dark. So you can see with that environment lighting, you can see all the way around this, even though the directional light, which is up here, is only pointing down the way, but there is some environment lighting that's coming onto this. So that's the basics of taking your hard work, your model and your bumps and your color painting from your model into Unity. And in the next tutorial we're going to put some bones in this and animate it, and then we'll finally get around to writing some code for some AI to make this thing move around. Now hopefully you're enjoying the series, and subscribe and comment if you want. Cheers.